Right, this is going to be episode 48 of OverSight. Back to our nice schedule of once every month, Monty. No, to be fair, like there was extenuating circumstances. Like I was trapped in America for a while with like non-functioning laptop, etc. And there was the whole global conference or whatever. I mean, it sounds pretty pretentious to say it was global con, but that was what it was called. It's called the Invent Global Conference that we went to tell everyone, I don't know, journalism's good or whatever, you know, some revolutionary statement like that. And so in the meantime, this is how you know a lot's changed in the world of Overwatch, because I actually saw that. It's weird. Let me just check my notes. Outlaw fans are upset with Monty for his characterizations of their team. So a lot's been changing in the world of Overwatch. You know, there's a lot of new developments out there. And so can we just start there, Monty? Like, give everyone a basic update. Like, is it the same way that they're upsetting you? Is it a similar fashion? As far as I can tell, like, here's my quick take, is you have fallen victim to, basically an occupational hazard of being an analyst, which is anytime you critique a team, and especially if you say, like, they lack something, so, for example, a style, a certain player, if they ever win even one fucking game, like, you better watch out, mate, because they will just be like, revenge! We get the revenge! Like, that's the moment where they just descend upon you and they know everything you said was wrong. So come on, what's the update? What is the problem this time?
Honestly, like, I don't really understand what the problem is, because in my mind, I am very, very correct about what happened. And what's frustrating though is not the Outlaws fans, because they're always pretty terrible, but it's the fact that Flame is like going on a vast stream and mischaracterizing what I said at the time. So the most hilarious shit that he said recently on a vast stream was that it was my opinion that it was ideal basically to play Sombra Goats on Eichenwald attack, and that because I was criticizing that they didn't play it on point B attack during the broadcast, that basically how I reached the conclusion of that they should, you know, branch out and try other things, how I reached it was wrong from the evidence. But that's never what I said, and it's not what I believe. I don't believe that the ideal strategy is to play Sombra Goats on Eichenwald B attack. I do not believe that. I do believe, and I did believe at the time, that was a better choice for the Houston Outlaws. So again, we're going back to, they are commenting as if I don't understand what the ideal play is, which I do. I definitely do. I understand what you should do in a perfect world of Overwatch. The fundamental thing that, and you were there, Thorin, that Flame and I disagreed on was I said on our show that I believe that the ceiling of the GOATs play for the Houston Outlaws was so low, they were going to be so bad at executing it that they shouldn't do it, even though in many instances it is the ideal play. I believe
narrator, they did not win any games. Right, continue. Just a fact.
Just a fucking fact there. He disagreed and said, well, we should play 3-3. We should play the GOATs mirror against Vancouver, because even though we will lose versus Vancouver, it will teach us things in order to play the mirror better against other teams.
Yes.
So, fun. Here's a fun little detail for you. We have a new metric, courtesy of Captain Planet, in our stats this season, or this stage he built during the stage break. And I can factually tell you that the Outlaws are the fourth worst team when it comes to team fight win percentage in a 3-3 mirror, because now we can look at team composition versus team composition and compare those win rates across the league. So I'm going to give Dante in space here. We haven't even introduced yet, as usual.
Yeah, we'll do that very quickly. So obviously Dante is DPS player from the Houston Outlaws, and even though technically you, just because of your job, you do represent the Houston Outlaws, we haven't brought you here to just represent them. Someone you can just go harmony. That's not. We already had that episode in the past already. Like we've done that. We don't retread the same ground twice. And then obviously our other guest is Space, flex tank of the LA Valiant, depending on whether or not he wants to be called that anymore or not. Who knows? Who knows where people are at anymore in the world? I think he's a good player anyway. So, right, go on then, Monty, continue.
So here's the quiz for you guys. I'm curious what you guys think. So there are three teams who have a worse team fight win percentage.
We're going to guess this. Right, come on, boys. We can do this.
Yeah, we're going to guess. Who are the three teams who have a lower 3-3 GOATs mirror win percentage, team fight win percentage?
Come on, who's the most obvious one?
Mayhem.
Got to be obvious.
DC.
Nope.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Oh, you guys were actually worse than the Justice.
That already hurts a little bit. I can't lie.
Chengdu?
Yep.
Yeah,
Must be.
Chengdu.
Yes. There's two. So there's one more. Only one more team in the league. And it's not...
Maybe Charge?
Nope.
No.
Let me see. Who could this be?
I don't think it's Boston.
You'd be surprised.
I'm going to go for a crazy one then. It's going to be like Atlanta Rain or something.
Nope. I'll give you a hint. They were a stage playoff team last stage, even though they had a worse...
Dallas?
Shanghai?
Shanghai.
Fusion? Oh, there we go.
So
Shanghai,
think about this. Think about this.
They barely played Goats like at all.
They played Sombra Goats.
Yeah, they played Sombra Goats.
So think about this. There's a great player that I really like. I think he's a really awesome Sombra player on the Houston Outlaws named Dante.
No.
And here's the thing. A team that played basically by the end of the stage exclusively Sombra Goats on every map, whether or not it was an ideal play, made the stage playoffs. I think that team could have also been the Houston Outlaws. The other thing that's very interesting about this is that two of those teams, the Chengdu Hunters and the Shanghai Dragons, realized that they were complete dog shit at playing a 3-3 mirror. And they just don't play it that much unless it's really necessary. Obviously, we will agree that there's some maps, there's some points where he's got to fucking play it. There's no choice. And also, I was advocating for that at the time. You know, you can't escape it at some points, but you can escape it sometimes. And even a lot of the time, actually, you can get away with it. So it's very interesting, I think, that the Shanghai Dragons and the Chengdu Hunters were down there. So, I mean, I just want to come back and say, like, I'm really sick of my points being misrepresented. And, like, you know what? You had a choice here, Houston Outlaws, in this situation, to just not say anything. Instead, you have now chosen to misrepresent my words and try and pretend that I said things I didn't say. So fuck you, frankly. Fuck you.
Right, there we go. That's a little bit of closure for everyone. We got to some sort of a consensus point. Right, Dante, obviously, you, as I said, you don't have to, you're not just a stand-in, a proxy for the Houston Outlaws in this respect. No. But since you are playing
you
for
are not
the team,
guilty of these crimes.
and as Monty alluded to, you would actually, in some ways, be a compelling reason as to why he would build that case, actually, you specifically as a player. So what are just your thoughts on this general topic? Like, Outlaws not... Well, wanting to play Goats, but then it not working out as well in the last stage. And just this general topic, do you have any thoughts on it? You must have some inside info for us.
Yeah, obviously, looking back now, Sombra Goats would be the way better option because we're good at Sombra Goats now, and we could have been good at it last stage. But we as a team, we really want to be good at Goats, but we didn't expect to go 0-7. We expected to actually get good at Goats, but that just never happened. So, probably would have been better just to play Sombra Goats and DPS because it just fits us better. But we tried to force Goats and it was a pretty big mistake. So.
To be fair, obviously, as you say, the actual premise wasn't a flawed one. The idea of well, if Goats is so important, then actually playing Goats against the best Goats teams in theory could help you train and figure out, what flaws there are in your game, and you could then hopefully beat the sort of mid-tier Goats teams. Mm-hmm. Is there any sort of revelation that came from the last stage? One of the things we've often speculated on this show is that actually, as much as it might look chaotic, Goats is pretty consistent, actually. The better Goats team tends to win the game. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's really consistent. Vancouver hasn't lost a game. Shock wins a lot. Nixel also wins a lot. And yeah, I think...
As someone in those games, what do you think it is that makes it so consistent if you're at the top tier of Goats?
Probably execution of your plays. I think that's something that we struggled with a lot. We were really bad at executing and really bad with playing with our ults. Mm-hmm. And that's what made us really bad at Goats. But then teams like Vancouver, Shock, you can tell that they have really good plans and they always do stuff for a reason. But we found ourselves kind of just throwing out ults for no reason at times.
Okay.
Is that a similar problem that you struggled with, Space, on the Valiant for a while, even though you guys have, obviously, this show is fun, and why we have you both on is because both your teams have improved so much. So I think it's a really interesting time to have you guys talk about where things kind of turned around for you.
Yeah, I think for us, it was the same as Outlaws. It was execution, communication, and trusting each other's calls was kind of the biggest problem for us in stage 1 of Goats. Was just we didn't trust each other play style, and there was a lot of mistakes that we had made, and we didn't really correct them until stage 2 and stage 3 is kind of when we went over everyone's play and made sure that we were all on the same page when we were playing.
So you guys have had a lot of changes over the course of the season. So it's also interesting because one of you guys, on the Outlaws side, we've heard Flame talk about this now. You guys didn't have necessarily the money to hire additional coaches, even though you wanted to make changes, you couldn't. And on the side of the Valiant, you guys have made like a shit ton of changes. Like you got rid of your coach, Moon. You have traded Fate to the Mayhem. So on the Valiant side, what were the aspects of these changes? Your new coach, Packing, he's still living on the East Coast, right?
Yeah.
So he's coaching remotely. You do have coaches like Stoop on site, but so what were the big changes that went like? What wasn't working with Moon? Because I do think Moon's a good coach. I just think he was not a good coach necessarily for you guys as a team. So what have been the major changes that Packing has brought in, and like how have you seen like the focus of the team shift?
I think Packing's biggest changes is like trust and making sure that we're working our hardest every day in practice. Because there was a lot of days where we would lose a map or lose some scrims and just completely like go mental boom and not try hard, and like everyone would not trust each other, and the communication would just get worse and we would just play worse. But Packing is kind of, since he's came in, has made sure that every day, even if someone tilts, like it's our job as teammates and players to make sure that that player untilts, and like we keep practicing hard and we keep working hard. So that's been something that Packing is really good at, and it's making sure that like we all trust each other and play as like a better team. Because I felt like even in season 1, if you look at Valiant, like there was a lot of times that when we won, it was really just players carrying really hard individually, like either me, Soon, Agilities, Fate, Kariv, like anybody on the roster, like Custa, like anybody in the roster just played really well and hard carried the team to win. Like a lot of our games were just super close back in season 1, but we still were a pretty good team. So I think Packing has made sure that like we're trusting each other more and becoming more of a team rather than just really good mechanical players.
When everything went really badly and you had the terrible stage where you guys couldn't get any wins, was there like sometimes you can have, everything can seem fine in a team and practices are fine, but then all the results and the actual official matches go badly. Was it like that, or was there actually like internal fractures and like different personalities and people disagreeing on things? Is that what led to, like some of these big changes?
Yeah, I mean, it was like that, honestly. It was like coming into stage 1, things were going really well. Like we were playing well against good teams on GOATs and like in DPS mirrors. So we were doing really well. It's just when stage 1 actually came, there was like a lot of decisions and miscommunication between the team and the players, like the players and the coaching staff. There was a lot of miscommunication and like decisions that were made that shouldn't have been made, that just kind of spiraled out of control during stage 1. And then
I was enjoying that cookie, Lucio.
And then like players, it would like be like players were like disagreeing with each other, then coaches were disagreeing with each other, then everyone was disagreeing until like eventually it was too late and it was already 0-7, and we just stuck with one roster and then kind of figured it out after in stage 2. But I think things were going really well, and like we still felt like we were a strong team, but then out of nowhere, like just some things happened that kind of shattered everything, and then that kind of spiraled into where we are right now.
Okay.
I have to admit,
by the way, Monty, avoid any attempt to make some sort of a joke about finally seeing the dark side of the moon.
I will. Okay.
Okay. Just everyone. Nobody. I don't want any lowbrow humor like that. Go on, then, Monty. What are you going to say?
I actually was surprised because I visited you guys at the Valiant facility before the season started and sat in for like a couple of scrim blocks with you guys, and you were performing.
Just watching,
better.
Obviously.
Yes.
That made it sound like you just jumped in, like, oh, I'm a DPS now.
That would be disastrous. That'd be disastrous. Yeah. Even Cookie's better at Lucio than I am. So, it was like I was watching and it like seemed okay. So I was surprised that I was really surprised by the results because it didn't seem like. And that's when I started to think it was internal issues, because I saw something very different than we were experiencing in the Overwatch League. And usually that's like a morale issue or a cohesion issue within the team. And, I can't speculate on that while I'm on the broadcast because that's not fair to you guys. But I was definitely like a little weirded out by what was going on.
I mean, and those games are also really close. Like I still felt like even though we might not have been fielding the best roster or like playing together as a team, we're been at our best in the GOATS meta, like those games were actually super close against New York, against Spark, not against Titans, like they smoked us, but we learned a lot from that game. I forgot. I don't really remember who else we played, but every game was super close. Like Outlaws, the game was super close.
Yep.
All the games were really close, and that kind of made it worse for us, to be honest, as players, and for me specifically. Like every game that got closer and closer to winning just kind of made me like more demotivated to play, and like just made it harder for me as a player. But I just had to get past that wall and like keep grinding, looking to stage 2 and stage 3 basically. But I still felt like we were a pretty good team, and we can still build off of what happened in stage 1.
Yeah, I actually just looked it up now. You had like 3 games that were 3-2 losses.
Yeah, like
every single series you played, you won at least one match.
It was all.
It was pretty rough to go 0-7 after that, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys also you guys had a really hard schedule as well. Like the opponents you were facing they were very challenging. So I think you guys had the hardest strength of schedule in stage 1, which out of all 20 teams. So that was another factor that we have to talk about. So with the Outlaws, you guys didn't make any changes. So there have been mentions, and I'm curious to hear your take on this story. So one of the fun things that Jake mentioned, I believe, was that you guys were scrimming against the Chengdu Hunters, and you just realized that you could do what they could do. And after losing to them, you guys like Jake said you guys had like a mental boom and then tilted and then came back and started playing a bunch of DPS because you thought you could do it better. What happened? Was that like
that's rich? That is so rich. Moment? It's delicious.
I know,
anyway,
right?
Continue.
Especially after Flame said that
I know.
you couldn't. That basically like it took a lot of practice to be the Chengdu Hunters, and they couldn't just do it instantly. Yeah, I know it's fucking hilarious, but like let's move on to.
Let's not. We won't be too petty on this episode. We'll leave that for us. Come on, Dante.
I'm gonna be petty. I'm just warning you. They call me Tom Petty after this fucking shit, man. Let's go.
So we were scrimming Chengdu, and we were having our goats roster in. I wasn't playing in the goats roster at the time, and then like halfway through, or like probably like the third map, we decided just to play DPS, and then like I came in like the last 2 maps or something, but we just decided to play DPS. I wasn't like I think I was playing ranked or something while we were like scrimming them for the first hour, but I'm pretty sure it was really rough. And then we just decided to play DPS because we didn't think like. I don't know. We were just like upset that they were like cheesing us. So we're like, okay, well, we're not going to give them good practice either. So we go DPS back. And then we're like, wait, we're good at DPS. Because like it was our like first time playing DPS and we were like winning against them. So, and like we were getting like owned when we were playing goats, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, so we just decided to play a little bit more DPS. And we started trying it on more maps. And yeah, now we just do what we do now. We play DPS and Sombra goats on like wherever we can play it.
The results are pretty night and day, though. If you look, like we close lost to New York, beating the Shock, like this is big time stuff.
Yeah, it's a huge difference. It just fits our style a lot more. Like everything, like even the Sombra goats, like player wise, it fits because I'm like a good Sombra, but like even like play style wise, where Sombra goats you have to like play passive until like you have EMP or Shatter or like you can make an ult combo, but like our goats, we were really bad because like we would just play passive and do nothing, and the other team would always make the first move. We would like never do anything to counter it, but like that just works to our favor in Sombra goats, where we play passive, just build EMP, and then press Q to win, and yeah, it's really nice.
One of the things that has always been true before you joined the Outlaws is that typically the Outlaws have been a very defensive team, meaning that the Outlaws have been very successful at like on assault or on hybrid or on escort, like especially on assault and hybrid, basically creating strong bunker or spam compositions. So to like what the Outlaws historically, the Jake Rat, the Orisa. So that has been the Outlaw strength. And what I like about you guys playing Sombra Goats is that if you do play some of these compositions on defenses, oftentimes you can get a nice hold coming into like B. The Outlaws have always been good at making sure people don't finish maps. Mm-hmm. But the flip side of that has been the attack has been very weak.
Yeah, the offense is so bad in stage 2. We kept like 5 points.
Well, it's always been bad. It like to be fair, like it's not just stage 2. It's like this is just a thing about the Outlaws style. That has been true ever since last year. But what I like about you guys playing Sombra Goats now is what Sombra allows you to do is because you get those moments where EMP is just such a powerful ultimate that you can win a team fight. If you have a strong defense, Sombra Goats oftentimes allows you, it may not get you through the whole map, but it allows you to basically default win team fights a lot of the time, which gets you movement on the objective, which means that you don't have to, you can use Sombra EMP to just push it like through 1.5 points or 2 points. And that's oftentimes all that you need. So that's one of the things I think is great about the Outlaws playing that particular composition. Yeah. I want to ask about a different comp, though, that you guys have, which is we saw Seoul actually doing this against San Francisco yesterday, which I thought was really funny because it's one of the ways you beat San Francisco. Yeah, the Doomfist Pharah Sombra composition, which is fucking awesome to watch. So how was that developed, and what do you guys? I mean, you can't give away everything, obviously, but what do you guys like about it?
Well, we saw Shanghai play it, so we're like, let's give it a try, and we said yoink, and we started playing it because it worked well. We just like looked at like Chengdu and Shanghai were two teams that played DPS, so we looked at like the comps they played and like the rollouts and stuff and like what made it strong, and we decided to like, I think Shanghai originally played Doomfist Widow Pharah, but then we swapped to Sombra because Nixel, like originally we were playing Doomfist, but when we saw Nixel was like only playing Sombra Goats, we just decided to play Sombra instead because you don't really want to play Doomfist against Sombra Goats. I mean, you can, it's not bad, but I think Sombra is just more optimal. So we changed that like last second, and it helped a lot because Sombra is like another comfort hero of mine. Like I also play Doomfist, but I think Sombra is better for the snowball because you can just swap to Sombra Goats right after you cap first or like right after you run out of ults. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it's just really good for everyone's styles. Like Widow for Linkser, he's really good Widow, good Doomfist. Jake's really good Pharah. I think Pharah is like one of Jake's best heroes, probably his best. Like at least in this meta, he's a really good Pharah. So it fits like all our strengths. Muma also plays a lot of Hammond. He has a lot of Hammond one-trick accounts. He just plays in rank. So yeah, it just fits all our strengths and it's just a good comp for us.
How was there never a meeting where people did this? They were like, wait a minute. So that Chengdu team that we definitely can't copy, like, wait a minute, you actually one-trick Hammond just privately on your own, yeah? Or you actually do play Pharah, to be fair. No. It never worked. Forget about that, guys. Right, let's have some nice goats.
It's almost unreal, isn't it, Thorin? It's almost unreal.
Here's the thing, I'm spinning it in the positive money. I know obviously the whole personal thing you've got to you. I'm just looking at this as a wonderful coming of age story of a team where they learned that in the end, the DPS, in the end, really, the true goats were the friends we made along the way.
Yeah.
Or whatever the sort of bullshit line they always say in those American movies is.
I mean, I think the big problem was like we tried DPS in the past, but we didn't really commit to it. Like we tried it a little bit at the beginning of stages because like that's what a lot of teams are doing.
Was it different to how you ran it now? Like was there a different type of comp you were trying to run mainly when you did that?
Yeah, there were like a bunch of different DPS comps. Like in the beginning of the stage, remember Space? Like every team was like playing DPS because they thought it was good. But then the Winston D.Va, Moira, Sombra, like three support Winston D.Va Sombra comp came out. Like I think Shock started playing it, and it was pretty good against DPS.
Shock and Gladiators played that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they would play that, and it would like win most of the time because we weren't really practiced on DPS and we didn't know what to do. But that's kind of us just like giving up, being like, oh, Goats is just better because like they can swap to Goats easier because they have 3 supports already. But yeah, that was just us messing up.
No, I mean, it's true.
We just didn't commit to it. We thought it was bad because like there's a counter comp.
You know, it's not easy, and like I don't want to discount like your guys's journey through this because I understand that the trap you fall into. I've been a professional coach as well, and it was something that I had to learn from coaching teams. Is that as somebody who understands the game deeply, like you want to run Goats because you understand that this is the ideal way to play the game, and it's hard to take a step back. And I had to do this when I was coaching and be like, okay, I know this is ideal, but these players that I have are simply incapable of executing this. And so you're going to have to find some other way to play to those players' strengths and like really step back and think about it. And the problem is that it feels bad at first because like you're saying, you try it and it doesn't work because you're not practiced at it. And you don't understand how to operate it into the ideal strategy. So you're going to lose. And then you get discouraged and you think, shit, like, oh man, should we really be doing this? And it's that moment of doubt where you either you make the choice to either continue pressing forward with the strategy that you think over time will work, or you just fall back into trying to do the ideal thing again, but you already knew you weren't good at it. And I think that's like, that there's like that crucial moment that happens, and if you don't have experience, like sort of again to go with Thorin's coming of age analogy, having the belief in yourself to like keep on pushing forward and being like, all right, we're gonna take a few losses, but eventually we're gonna like have that breakthrough moment. It's really tough. It is really hard.
Yeah, it was just like really hard because like we saw all these teams playing DPS. Like a bit like when Stage 2 first came out, I'm pretty sure like every team was playing DPS in the beginning, but then after like a week, like by the end of the week, everyone was like back to goats, and I think we also felt the pressure because like these good teams would own us because they were playing the 3 support Moria Sombra like goats or whatever, and it was just really hard to do anything. And I don't know, we just decided to go back to goats because if they win the first fight on that comp, then they have like all the like good ults like Rally. Like it's impossible to win a fight against. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's really hard to win against Rally. It's such a strong ult. Like
which also
EVP and stuff.
I didn't even realize it was bugged until I saw that post.
That
Which is
video
like
is
crazy.
Yeah, it's been bugged the whole time.
That's really so. Duncan, I don't know if you saw this. So there's an issue right now. So in Overwatch, basically armor does damage reduction, right?
Yeah, sure.
So armor HP is treated different than normal HP or shield HP.
Sure.
So the issue is when Brigitte does rally, it ticks up armor incrementally, so it like adds chunks of armor over time.
Right.
But the damage mitigation is also stacking. So what happens is like it's multiplying. So it should just stay at a constant rate.
Yes.
But in fact, each tick of armor like multiplies that damage reduction.
Yes.
So it ends up.
So the more you have, like the less damage you take overall. Okay.
Yeah. It ends up being super powerful armor over time, which nobody realized. It's just a bug. It's just a bug in the game. But this explains a lot about how invulnerable people are during the Brigitte ultimate.
It was so hard to kill people. Especially when you have like heroes like Sombra Tracer who just do no damage to armor.
Yeah,
like you just can't play half the heroes in the game. Like the only thing that does damage is like Fair Rockets. And like it's reduced a lot too.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like yeah.
So it's been an interesting revelation, and I'm curious when they're gonna change that and patch that in, because it does actually dramatically change.
Wouldn't that in itself though then also like make DPS stronger in theory, since you would need something that could actually potentially kill the Brigitte, or you have to have the better Brigitte yourself?
Well, having the same ult is really good. So
yeah, not bad. Sure, true.
But it's also that it's such a strong damage reduction, Thorin, that like basically even high damage things, like it's the inspire as well and the sustain, it's still really hard to grind through.
You could have like them all at like 1 HP, but then they pop rally, and if you don't get those kills in the next 2 seconds, they're just not dying. It's really bad. I think another thing that helped with DPS is the rise of Doomfist. I think in stage 2 he got his buffs. Like the 5-second uppercut, or like the 6, I don't know. They reduced the cooldowns a little bit, and they made his E actually work again, because like for a while his E was super bad. Like if you hit someone with his seismic slam, the E, like they could just jump out of it. Like they would fly out of it. Like it wouldn't stun lock them at all. But they like fixed it so it actually did. I don't know. They removed it like a year ago, and then they said it was a bug, and then they just added it back like 6 months ago, saying it was a bug again. So I don't know, like 3 months ago. I don't know what was up with that, but yeah, that helps a lot with Doomfist, because he was so bad when he didn't stun lock them, because that's his hero. Like he like uppercuts, like stuns them in the air, and then like stuns them on the ground, punches them. But yeah, they took away a big a big part of his kit. So yeah, now he's good again. Just needed to fix his E.
So you guys, which times do you think Doomfist is good? Because obviously we've seen in the Korean contenders scene, like Element Mystic and Sparkle playing a lot of Doomfist, and that has been the Sombra Doomfist has been one of their answers to GOATs. Now, obviously, they're not playing against GOATs teams that are as good as Vancouver or the Shock. But what situations do you guys like to use Doomfist in, or do you think he's ideal?
I think on maps that support him, like we played the Sombra Doomfist comp on Village. We think that's like a really good map for Doomfist, because like there's a lot of walls, there's a lot of areas Doomfist can hide, like just drop down and punch them. I think Numbani is another good map, because it's just on defense, if you have the positioning, it's really easy to get stuff done. Even on offense, it's easy to get in and get positioning, but it just depends on like the map geometry. And I think those are the only 2 maps we play it on, but those 2 maps Doomfist feels the best on.
Are you guys liking Doomfist as well these days on the Valiant side?
No, we don't like playing against it, especially when we scrim Outlaws. Like their main team is just on Numbani. It's probably the hardest. We feel like it kind of forces you to play DPS or like figure out a set strat where you can force the Doomfist out. But I think Doomfist is really strong against goats and like Brig especially when you have the advantage on defense starting off. So
Yeah, I think Doom on offense is a lot harder because you have to fight for positioning, but defense is just given to you. So
yeah,
you can just be hiding like any corner or any high ground on defense, and they don't know. But on
and
offense,
just like
you have to,
snowball.
yeah, it's hard to get those positionings on offense a lot of times.
Yeah.
And I think it's good on Call too because like the village comp that we did, Element Mystic comp, we just had like Jake hide on the opposite side of the map. And then our plan was just to like sneak attack them because they don't know where the Doomfist is. And it worked for a while. Like every team in scrims was like so confused. Like we just like get like a random kill on them, and they were like, "Wait, what?" But yeah, it worked against Shock somehow. And Jake's mouse like double clicked. Like he missed the punch on Choi because his mouse double clicked. Like he clicked right click and then just instantly shot his punch, and we almost messed up with that. But we still ended up meching him. And yeah.
Wait a minute, he pressed a different button and that made a button he didn't press click twice. That sounds like some dog ate my homework shit. He just misclicked. Listen, we all misclick from time to time. I don't think the mouse just magically malfunctioned. I don't know about that one.
I mean,
I want like some Zapruder footage on that.
It sounds like, Jake, make a mistake and then blame it on something.
Double down on it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nah, I'm pretty sure
made play goats. I don't know. Weird.
That's why we paused on. I think it's our first Numbani against Nixel. We paused for like 5 minutes because Jake's like, "Guys, my mouse it just fucked up. Like I instantly punched." And he's like, "I don't know why, but I just keep on punching, but it just instantly like clicks it." I'm like, "Dude, I think your mouse is double clicking." Yeah.
We'll give him the benefit of the doubt on this. Right?
Yeah, we'll give him the benefit of that.
That was a big problem with Logitech mice. So like the G Pro wireless, it would just always double click when it first came out. It was so bad. It was so hard to play like Widow or Doomfist because like you just unscope randomly or like your punch would randomly hit. It was so annoying.
Just to check, you aren't sponsored by Logitech, are you?
No.
Right, good. Your career's still fine, man. This doesn't require any kind of an edit on this section, right? I just needed to know for my own personal benefit, right? Okay, continue.
Okay, so you guys. So I do want to talk about some other strats that you guys have been running. So against Boston, you had this very interesting Symmetra defense. So how did that come about? Like how are you guys running that stuff? Oh, offense. Sorry. Yes.
Well, I actually didn't want to play the strat in map, but it was like our last time playing Havana, so I wanted to save it for playoffs just in case. But we just wanted to play it just to flex on them, I guess. I don't know. But basically, we like spawn camped a team in overtime, and we held like right outside the door. So we just decided let's play Bastion. Like, what are they gonna do? And we did it in overtime, and we're like, I wonder how that would work if we actually did it like just to roll out with in the beginning. So yeah, we just tested it a couple times and it worked pretty well. And then Raucus had like an idea. He's like, wait, I'm gonna TP you guys up onto the balcony. So like he just went back to spawn his BAP, and then came back on Symmetra, and then we TP'd our Bastion and stuff up. And it's so funny seeing teams' reactions because some teams just don't know what to do. Like, because it's so weird. Like, if you're playing goats, how do you kill a Bastion that's up there? Like, the best you can do is stall cart. But then, like, Sombra's farming EMP if you're stalling cart, so it's, like, really weird. And then, yeah, it actually snowballs pretty well because map geometry. Like, there's another god spot on second point. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't think we're going to play it for a while because people are going to, like, people saw it. And we don't play until maybe playoffs if we make playoffs.
I mean, it seems pretty likely. Just as an aside, your schedule is Florida, DC, Toronto, and Paris.
Ooh.
So real chance you go 5-2, 6-1 here, right? This is looking like an excellent stage for you guys.
I hope so. I think we really found our footing with Sombra. It's like we just understand all our win, or not all our win conditions, because like we're still learning, obviously, and I think other teams are learning as well, like how to play against it like better every single day. But I think we understand Sombra Goats really well, and yeah, looking good for us.
So I'm not gonna ask you to reveal your secrets. So I'll ask Space instead. What are the keys for you guys when you play against Sombra Goats? What do you think are the most important aspects to beating it?
I think for me personally, what I learned the most was that I can't go on the Sombra ever. It's like something that we learned is that in the beginning when people used to play against Sombra, it was mainly D.Va that would force the Sombra out, or like that's what teams thought was the best, was that D.Va could just fly in and force her out. But when teams started pocketing their Sombras with like armor and Discord Orb for the D.Va, and then Harmony Orb for the Sombra, like it's impossible to win. You're just giving EMP. So what we figured out was that don't send the D.Va and just have the D.Va focus on the front line and then spy checking the Sombra, and then send your Lucio or your Brig or something of the sort to go deal with the Sombra. And that's kind of worked the best for us. It's like that was the biggest problem, I think, with most teams, was like D.Vas were shutting down the Sombras, and eventually the Sombra Ghost team was like, okay, this is a free window for us to farm EMP. Like
I don't
if
think
D.Va
like
comes in, just fly away, and then everyone back up. I farm EMP, and then we go again. But like if a Brig runs straight at the Sombra's face, then the Sombra has to recall. So that was the biggest thing for us. And once we kind of learned that, it made it so that I have much more opportunities to open up on their front line rather than looking at the Sombra.
Yeah, it was so funny when D.Vas would fly at you, and I would just be like, pocket me.
Yeah.
And like I would just get resources and like 1v1 a D.Va and get like 50% EMP.
Yeah.
It's just insane. Like you just say pocket me, and then you get an armor pack, and then like maybe Discord goes on a D.Va, and you can literally get 50% EMP in like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And I think like against Sombra Goats, the most important thing is just like pre-planning and talking about what their team's going to use after the EMP, and like how to counteract that, and like kind of your play style, what you want to do to force out EMP. If you want to play like aggressive or play really passive and just play for time. But I think like what we learned from Shanghai and Charge playing against them is like we can control the tempo with goats and like force them to make mistakes or like use abilities. It's just about how we pre-plan in the future of like, this is what's going to happen when they EMP. How are we going to react to this? Who's going to dodge it? Who's not going to dodge it? Et cetera, et cetera. And like where our positioning is when the EMP hits.
So one of the factors that many teams are doing right now, and interestingly, the Shock did not do against you guys when you were playing Sombra Goats, is run Ana. And because these teams don't have a D.Va most of the time that they're playing, it does enable a lot of Ana's abilities, because you're not going to get the Biotic Grenade or the Sleep Dart Defense Matrix. Also, the Nano Boost, I think, is very important because it allows you to create space in the front line. So if the Sombra's behind you, you can Nano a Rhine or whatever, and he's just going to run into the enemy team while the Sombra's trying to charge EMP. So what do you guys look for, Dante, when you see an Ana on the other team? Because you didn't see it when the Shock played.
I think Ana's really weird because that means you only have one defensive ult beat. Yep. And I think it makes it really hard to play when the other team has two defensive ults. Like EMP, Grav, it makes it really hard because like say we have Grav or something, I can just hack their Lucio like really easily. Like Lucio's really easy to hack. We have a free Grav, or say we have Grav and EMP, like we can just Grav and I can EMP the beat off. And like maybe they just don't even have beat and we have Grav or EMP. It's like really easy to win those fights because if they don't have like a trans, then it's just really easy to win fights.
Yeah, but the other side of that coin is like it. If you use EMP on the Zenyatta, he's just going to die instantly, right? So you have to pre-pop the trance a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think Zens are really good at hiding for EMP or like pre-transing. So I don't know. It's like I feel like Zen is like needed almost because people are like so good at Zen and like hiding for the EMP and like making sure they get a good trans off that it's just trans is so good. It's like such a good ult. And when you have EMP, Grav, Shatter, like all those fights win ults if they don't have, or all those ults win fights if they don't have support ults for them. Like if you get a big Shatter, you instantly win, or you get a big Grav, you like instantly win if they don't have the defensives, or big EMP, you just win. So. I mean, the Ana's good because you can like nano people that get grabbed and stuff, but I feel like the trans is just more important.
Yeah, I think a good way to look at it is like Ana is good in terms of like theoretically that'd be the better hero than the Zenyatta, but when you play against a team like Outlaws, for example, they play like Dante said, they play really passive and play really slow, so it makes you force the fight onto them. And with Ana, like you don't have enough damage to do that. Like you can maybe sometimes get a nade, but even with the nade, they're just going to keep backing up, and Dante's going to keep farming EMP. So like what the Zen does so well is that we can push forward and force the fight really quickly. Whereas with the Discord, with Ana, you're kind of making it harder. It's like playing DPS against DPS almost. It's like if you don't win that first fight, you just have to go goats, right? You have to swap and go into goats. So that's kind of what Ana is, unless you're playing like Atlanta, who is trying to work with the Zen Ana Lucio, and they played that against Shanghai, and I think it went like 3-2 or something. I didn't watch the match, but I know it was pretty close. So that's kind of another comp you can use. But I feel like Dante said, the Zen is like really strong. Unless it's kind of match specific, sometimes Ana could be better, or like point specific, Ana could be better.
Yeah, I think there are
overall
some
Zen is really good just because you want to force the fight quickly, and you have like I said the tempo to be like, okay, we force the fight here, they have to EMP, and then our Zen can transit. Like you have to set up plays like that kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously like Ana's good sometimes, like third points. A lot of the third
you
points.
guys have literally used Ana like very recently. That was part of the San Francisco shock. That's why I'm curious.
Us.
Yeah,
I thought you were talking about to counter Sombra Goats. Like,
I
think
yes, well, I was talking about to counter Sombra Goats. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I'm not saying you did that, but we will move on to the next Ana point in a minute. So you continue with your point.
For Sombra Goats with Ana, it makes like so you can't really get rushed enough. Like if you're playing Sombra Goats, you can't really get rushed. Like we saw Nixel play a lot of Ana Sombra Goats, and yeah, it's just like really hard to rush them or like even kill them. So your Sombra can just farm a lot of EMP, and then with your EMP, you can just nade the trans. So you don't really need to worry about getting the Zen or getting anyone, just the D.Va and Ryan really. So yeah, I think the Ana is really good with Sombra Goats, but I'm not sure how good it is at countering it. But then, like, if it's a mirror, it's kind of weird too, because I don't know. We haven't really played the mirror that much, like with both teams having Ana, so I don't really know much about it. Like, speaking from experience, I could speculate about it, but I don't know.
So yeah, I think it has been an interesting like topic of discussion to see which of these supports is better, and we have seen the meta shifting as a result of a lot of these compositions coming into play now. So what do you think San Francisco could have done better versus you in the loss that they had? Like what were their biggest failings in dealing with your Sombra or your multi DPS play?
It was kind of weird. I got away with like a lot of farming because they didn't really have someone set to mark me. It'd just be like a random person every time. It wasn't really consistent. I don't think that's that good. Like the hardest, or I don't want to say what the hardest is because I don't know. It's like I don't want to tell other teams what to do.
Much.
Like, but I think they didn't really deal with me too well, and I think their support ults weren't that great. Like between Moth and Violet, I caught them with like a lot of EMPs and like I baited trans a few times, but they were just getting caught.
They stacked a few times too, right?
But did they?
I think so.
Oh,
I was watching.
Yeah, but they're really good, but I think they just had a bad game because it's possible. Maybe like one of them got bad sleep or something. Who knows? It's like really easy to have a bad game. Like if you just like don't eat, say you just don't eat before your game, like you don't have energy, or like say you don't get good sleep. It's like really easy to misplay.
You can also just have a bad game normally without weird sleep or any external factor. Human error, I believe it's called.
Like one mistake against Sombra Goats can just snowball the whole map if they play well with their ults. So
that's true.
Biggest problem is to get out of that snowball.
One thing with Sombra, if you win the fight without having to use your EMP, it's so good for snowballing because then they have to retake and you still have your EMP, and it's just so hard for them to take that fight. Because they have to like go to cart, but like how do they go to cart? Do they just send the Rhine and then like you can just hold EMP again? It's I don't know. It's really tricky when the other team has EMP because they can always just hold it and not use it, and then I don't know. It's just hard to play against Sombra, and I think we understand it a lot more.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then the next obvious question is Sombra Goats the new meta? Is this the most powerful composition in Overwatch right now? And if that's the case, then why weren't people playing it more before?
Yeah. I don't know, honestly. That is the question of the hour. Like that's what we're trying to figure out. That's what SF's trying to figure out. That's what New York thinks they figured out because they're just playing Sombra Goats permanently. And you even see Vancouver now playing it in their games too, with Xiaominsu on Sombra. So it's definitely I honestly can't really say if it's the best because I think there's teams that don't know how to play it and they like trying to force it.
I think teams are going to learn how to play against it better with like more time.
Yeah. So there's teams that are trying to force it that don't know how to play it, and then the GOATS team is going to end up winning. And then there's teams that just stick to GOATS and they versus Sombra team that doesn't know what they're doing and they end up losing. So I think it's just about like you said, Monty, about like a team's play style. Like Outlaws, like they're not good at GOATS, they're really good at Sombra GOATS, so they master that. And they learn how to play against the best teams on Sombra GOATS. Like you have to focus on playing against Vancouver, focus on playing against Shock, and like figure out individually how each team plays and work around that. And then for a GOATS team, we just have to work around on like how to play against Sombra GOATS and the specific play styles against different Sombras, because every Sombra is different. Like everyone has a different play style.
Yeah,
some teams will just AFK and farm EMP for 3 minutes until they win that one fight, whereas other teams will work around it better and try and force you to do something and make a mistake, and then their Sombra's going to farm BP that way. So it's all different, but I think I can't really say which one's better, honestly. Like I think one's 100% better.
Another thing in stage 2, the only team that played Sombra GOATS really was Shanghai. Like they were the only one. Like people played it from time to time, but nobody got practiced enough on it for it to seem good. But like Shanghai got like really good on it. They were like the first team to take a map off Shock, I think, on Oasis.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and it was just them playing it. So like they couldn't learn from other teams. Like I know I learned a lot from watching other players. Like Ding, I like to watch him. He's like really good Sombra. He's like really creative. I've learned some stuff from him. Like just like one thing I learned from him is like unstealthing around the corner. That way they don't hear your unstealth, and then you just walk around the corner. It's like really easy to hack people. I just learned that from watching him.
Sombra tech.
Yeah, that's like a really obvious one. Like, I think anyone can notice that if they just watch someone's point of view. But yeah.
Now, here's a question then. Does the fact that by letting the meta basically breathe a little bit and a chance for counters and other variants of guts to emerge, when actually if you'd gone back in time like a month and a half, 2 months ago, people would have said like, no, it's the way you figured out, like, this is pretty much the best way to play it. And it actually tied into the whole debate we had with Flame on the whole Outlaws thing. People thought like guts to some degree had been solved and it was just about execution.
Yeah.
Does this in any way make any of you think that like Blizzard shouldn't consider the proposed upcoming 222 lock? Should we just stick with what we have now, and then maybe there'll always be some sort of an answer will emerge from the meta, or you can sort of slightly massage the meta without going too crazy and just let pro play develop that way? Or should we go to a 222 lock? What do you guys think?
Well, I think GOATS is like really unhealthy for the game because it's really like for stage 2, I think like the only basically like all of stage 2
it was that in Chengdu and the Shanghai Dragons playing Sombra GOATS.
It's like everything like so similar. Like if it's not GOATS, it's like a small variant of GOATS. Obviously there's more DPS now because it's pretty good.
Sure.
But I don't know. It's just GOATS is just too dominant in my opinion for like on every point. And I bet if they just like nerf Brig, it'd be a lot worse. But I don't know.
Yeah,
Brig is just so strong. She's so good at
one thing, something else becomes broken immediately.
Yeah.
It's just,
would it be enough just to fix the bug you talked about with the armor multiplier? Like, would that alone be a small enough tweak, or does it have to be a big nerf?
I think it has to be a bigger nerf.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's hard to say though, because it could just be BAP goats. Like Shock is really good at BAP goats as well, and that's good against DPS.
I think that's the issue. Is that like because of Batiste's released. It's no longer just Brigitte, right? Because you can definitely just play Batiste goats instead.
Yeah.
It's the sustain that's the issue.
Yeah. 3 support is just like really OP. It's just like
the sustain good. And the snowball.
Yeah, the ult snowball.
Like Thorin said about the 222, I feel like personally for me it's like a kind of a band-aid on the game of just like forcing 222, because when I look at it, I feel like Overwatch is meant to be swapped, like you're supposed to swap heroes and not be locked onto one role. I don't know if their goal was to be like a DPS player shouldn't be playing support, or like a DPS player shouldn't be on a tank role. Like that's not supposed to be how the game works. So that could be like why they want to go 222. But for me, I think it kind of would end up being the same thing. Like there'd be one comp that might be really strong, and then people will play that one comp and stick to that, and then eventually teams will kind of branch off and figure out other comps. So it's just a matter of like finding your play style and figuring out what's good for you. But like Dante said, Ghost is kind of resident sleeper to watch, and people don't really understand what's going on the screen. It's just six
'cause
heroes
there's a lot
bashing at each
going on.
other. Yeah.
So I think the fundamental issue and why I argue for 2-2-2 lock is, in an ideal world, I definitely agree with you guys that it's fun to be able to see people change roles.
Mhm.
I think the issue, though, is that if you think about it like a MOBA for a moment, if you're in, let's say, like Dota or League of Legends, the thing is that you can have a large array of heroes to use because the game can be played in different ways. Like in League of Legends, you can have a composition based for team fighting that's going to try and get Baron and try and force team fights. But there's another end of that spectrum, which is that you can have a split pushing composition that literally never wants to fight 5 versus 5 and is trying to attack multiple lanes at the same time and apply map wide pressure. So those are kind of the two extremes, and there's like a bunch of mix in between, right?
Yeah.
The problem is Overwatch is based around, every single map type is based around a single objective, whether it's a payload or one king of the hill point. So effectively, you have to have a team fighting team composition at all times, right? There is no split push equivalent. You can have pick compositions, which are like a little bit different, right? You're trying to get a headshot with Widowmaker or get a Roadhog hook in there or whatever. So that does change things like slightly, but at its core, the issue is that there's one objective that both teams are fighting for at all times.
You basically have to win certain key team fights as well, no matter what.
Yes, and because you have one objective, and the team that can stay on that objective longer is the one that's going to win. Hence the sustain problem. So I actually don't think, from a game design perspective, there is a way to fix the sustain problem without role lock. Mm-hmm. That would be my argument.
Yeah.
So yes, I don't like it either, but I don't know if there's a way. There's actually a legit way to fix it. Otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that too. And also, Overwatch, like you said, is not on one map like League of Legends, where you can make characters for that one map, and then they're gonna work on that map. Whereas in Overwatch, you're playing on all different maps, so not every hero is gonna work on every map. But I think that's right too. Is like the sustain might not be fixable, and unless you lock roles, so people can't play whatever.
And it's also the case that, like, so the weird thing about GOATs and what's so interesting to me about how the professional teams have reacted to GOATs, which I think you guys are, finally starting to like break the paradigm a little bit. Like Thorin was saying, is it necessary to do this when we see the meta shifting organically right now with basically no changes between stage 2 and stage 3? Like I'm not going to count Junkrat's projectile speed and like Reaper's, Shadow is like as massive changes in the game. So what's interesting to me is that, and something that not very many people talked about, was like GOATs was literally possible in stage 4 of last season.
Yeah. Mercy was a bit stronger though, in stage 4. So that might make a little bit of a difference. But people weren't as practiced on it. Like right now, everyone's like so practiced on GOATs that like DPS is just a lot harder, and like GOATs is just a lot easier against DPS because you just like naturally know how to play better. Like you naturally know what to do. And I mean, Brig was like so much stronger last stage 4. She was broken back then.
Exactly. So that's my point. Is like you could have had ultra GOATs, but nobody was playing it at the time because it hadn't been discovered yet.
Yeah,
it just wasn't practiced like at all. Like I think DPS is like hard. Like the first time you play GOATs, like it's like, oh, this is overwhelming. But like you just like get better so fast because I don't know, just an easy comp. Or not easy because like obviously we played really bad.
It's definitely not easy. But it's like there's a reason why you don't see it, right? In anybody's solo queue games, even at a very high level in queue, you're not really seeing GOATs because it takes too much teamwork and execution to actually pull off. So I want to talk about something else. Something along these lines, and get your guys' opinion on it. So there was a leak potentially, according to one of the Korean casters, and I'm neither going to confirm nor deny the plans for the league. But according to the Korean casters, they said that there is going to be a 2-2-2 lock implemented in stage 4. Now, I have been against late stage changes in games. Thorin, you'll remember in League of Legends, remember when they changed the turret armor so that you couldn't do lane swaps?
Yes.
and it came right before playoffs. And as a result, the unfortunate thing that happened was that a lot of teams that were great at lane swaps were suddenly in playoffs. This was right before the World Championship, and they couldn't do lane swaps anymore. And as a result, they were terrible in playoffs. Some teams were just like really bad, and it sort of left a bitter taste in their mouth about the entire season because the way the teams had gotten there was not the way that the playoffs were rolled. So it made for bad.
You also had very little time to adapt, obviously.
Yes.
Like you just had to play with whatever you had, basically.
Right. And so as a result, the teams that were aces at lane swapping, some of the teams were that, and some of the teams were playing standard and they were winning. The standard teams then didn't have to make any adjustments and just utterly, brutally smashed the lane swap teams. It was really shitty. So my question to you guys is, you guys probably, I would anticipate, would like a 2-2-2 lock just based on the fact that it gives you better chance. But in terms of competitive integrity, I think one of the other issues is that late in the season, teams have built their entire rosters around GOATs. Like they've made player and personnel decisions based on this meta. How would you guys feel about, stage 4 if that happens? What are your thoughts on the 2-2-2 lock? I want your thoughts too, Thorin, because it's a really big competitive integrity question.
By the way, if you like it, go ahead and say that. And obviously he set up the case that we can guess he's critical of it. But yeah, give your thoughts. What do you think?
What are your thoughts, Space?
I don't know. I mean, the way Monty words it, just makes me kind of nervous about it too, is because it's gonna be right before stage 4, and we have our biggest event. We have the kick of the weekend in stage 4, so we're gonna be
but maybe Valiant's the team that gets better, and it's actually Vancouver Titans that's not as good anymore. Maybe it's brilliant for you, right?
Yeah. So you never really know, but I mean, we're gonna have if the 2-2-2 does come through, we're gonna have about a month to practice hard on that. So we'll figure it out from there. But I can't really say. I don't know. It is really hard because it was kind of the same. In season 1, right? There was a meta change or a playoffs patch.
The playoff patch was different to the one for all the stages. It was the handle patch.
To be fair, I disagree with that as well.
Exactly.
And it did change the meta over to the Hanzo Orisa.
That was a weird.
That for us completely screwed us because Agila never really practiced Hanzo before, and then he had to play up on stage with Hanzo, and we didn't know what to do against a team like Spitfire and Fusion, who had the most aggressive Hanzo players. Sure. And we didn't really know how to pocket or play around agilities properly, so it really hurt us. And then that was really hard for us too. So I can't really say because it's just up to Blizzard, I guess. I don't really know.
Now, but the difference is it's esports. One of the things that every esports team in any game has to deal with is patches and meta changes, right? That's just the reality of life. Yeah. But there are certain times, and I would argue, like what I was talking about in League of Legends and like this one, they're really big meta changes. It fundamentally changes the way the game is played, right?
Yeah, I think for competitive integrity, it's it's kind of it's not good for a lot of teams like Shock, Nixel, Vancouver. All these.
I imagine they would be furious about this.
Yeah. Sure. But for us, it's hey.
Meta. New meta.
Let's pop off next stage. Maybe we can make stage or actual playoffs, and then be really good because all these other teams that have these insane ghost rosters, maybe you
have to start fresh.
Yeah, they have to start fresh, and that's a good opportunity for lower teams right now, and maybe we can climb back and get to playoffs if it's 2-2-2. But I think it's good for viewership too, because I'm pretty sure
it's definitely good for the fans.
Yeah, viewership, everyone hates goats. No one really likes goats except for the teams that are winning. Which I mean, now that we're actually winning some games, it kind of feels good to play Sombra goats. It's we're not getting pounded every game, so it feels good. But I think the teams that have been winning this whole time, Vancouver, they're 16-0 or 15-0, whatever they are. They're probably not too happy. Because are they 17-0?
Yeah, I think so.
That's
or maybe
they're 18-0 now. I think.
18-0. Oh, that's crazy. But they literally haven't lost a game, so they're
gonna play. Yeah, they're gonna play in our rivalry weekend and if it's 2-2-2, they're gonna play.
Yeah,
against
and what if you
Shock
clap them in
and-
2-2-2?
They're gonna play against Shock and NYXL, which are two teams that they want to beat in GOATs. So for them, it's probably gonna be crazy. If they lose, then they're gonna be furious about that probably.
So yeah, that's probably frustrating for all the good GOATs teams, but feels good for us. Hopefully.
I think there's always just this tension because, like you guys said, at the professional level, it's really exciting to be able to switch to any role, and that adds a lot of depth to the game in a similar way that. So this is actually like a really weird, similar problem that League of Legends had. So lane swapping was not a thing anyone ever did at even the top ranks of the ladder, right? So it was basically what we're seeing in both games are purely professional strategies. And I don't think it's good. It's good for me as an analyst who loves seeing complex play and like strategic depth, but it is not reflective of anybody who plays the game for fun's experience.
Yeah.
And therefore it is bad for viewership because many people watch esports to get better at the game. And if it is a completely fucking different game, basically, that the pros are playing, which it is, basically, then it's not good. And so I understand why Riot made that decision. I do not agree with the timing of that decision.
Yeah.
And selfishly, I liked lane swaps. And I do like GOATs as well. I wish it wasn't all GOATs, but I think as a strategy, it's really interesting if you know what's going on and you can pick apart the subtleties of it and appreciate it. But I do think that it is bad for viewership. And I do think it is bad for Overwatch League from a pure viewership perspective.
That's the thing, though. I do think you have to make that distinction. Like, for me, there's like three little topics in this. One is like the competitive integrity angle. So I think regardless of whether you want 2-2-2 lock or not, as with the example you gave, it just feels a bit bullshit to do it like during the whole season, especially because remember, the thing you always tell me, Monty, when I complain about the way the stage playoffs are set up and the fact that everyone has uneven schedules is, but it's a whole season. It's a league. Well, that's the point, isn't it? If you radically change the league towards the end, it's like, what were we building towards? Like, think of teams in stage one where their whole thing was like, it's all right, we had a really tough Valiant, we had a really tough strength of schedule, it's all right, we'll get them all in the back end. What if they're shit at 2-2-2? Like, we were building towards nothing. That's rough.
Yeah, exactly. And do you guys know when the roster lock is this season? I actually don't off the top of my head. Is it before stage 4? That's when it was last year.
I think it might be, I'm pretty sure it's before stage 4.
Yeah, and I think that's the other problem is like, it's a little less harsh if they had done it before stage 3, so we could at least like, okay, you have half a year to like learn and like bounce back from this. But like stage 4 is just so late in the game, and also the problem is you can't if you discover you are not good at 2-2-2.
Yes, you can't adapt.
You can't.
At least you lost
players.
it anyway. Yes, exactly. Yeah,
you're just stuck. Like that sucks. I think.
No, I'll give you an analogy on that from esports actually. So this actually happened. Now the interesting thing is obviously Counter-Strike as a game isn't updated as much as like games like Overwatch, and especially you don't really balance tweak that much. Generally the guns are the same guns overall that they always have been. But the area you can change Counter-Strike is the map pool, because obviously, we have like 7 maps at any one time. And that once did actually happen. It was like 2014, and right before a major, they actually put 2 brand new maps that no one had played into the pool. And believe it or not, the team that won the major won a whole bunch of times on that map. So like that was actually a big get. And the reason why I bring that up as a comparable example is exactly like this, what Monty set up there. The part that makes it unfair is like, listen, everyone starts with no practice on these maps. But the point is, it's not like you could play the map and go, actually, you know what, we need to like really like practice and like narrow down. Oh wait, they're at the tournament. We can't do that actually. Like it's actually just luck of the draw. Like if you were just good on it at the day one, you were the team that won the tournament. If you were bad on it, it's unfortunate for you that was the major you thought you were going to win. Then the other angle, that's like the timing, really. I would say in terms of whether you should do it or not, I'm really torn on that one, because I do kind of feel like
it's so hard.
As you say, first of all, there's obviously, depending on what team you have, you're going to disagree. Like, I totally get it if you're like the Vancouver Titans and you're like, what the fuck? So me being too good means it gets taken out the game. Like, what was my best case scenario? Like, I'll give you a quick analogy. One of my favorite basketball players of all time, Charles Barkley, actually had this happen to him. A lot of people don't know this. In the late 80s, he was so dominant as a small forward, right? And because he was famously a very small position for a small player for that position, his strength, though, is because he was small, but he was very rotund, as you might politely describe him. He used to use his low, like, base of weight, his low, like, point of gravity, to just back people down all the time in the post, right? And so the problem with this was, because he basically, like, weighed more than your player who was defending him, if he just kept backing into you, because technically basketball is a no-contact sport, you would have to keep moving backwards and he would be under the basket, he'd turn around and he'd score. So what the NBA literally did was change the rules of how long you're allowed to do that. They made it, you're only allowed to back a player down for 3 seconds. So it's the same thing. If you're Charles Barkley, you're like, wait a minute, like, I'm trying to be the best basketball player in the world. Like, so because I'm too good at this, it has to be removed so that I specifically can be worse. Like that, I totally get that. If you're a player, you're like, this is bullshit. Like, the whole point is to be the best. Like, you know, they don't like make the jump shot different because Michael Jordan made too many. Like, what the fuck is this shit? So there's that angle. I totally get that.
Bullshit.
It is crazy, isn't it? It is. There's a few like that. It was a similar one with Shaq also, like where they changed the rules on how you had to defend him. Yeah. Then on the other side of the equation, though, like the big problem I have is this one. And I think with Overwatch League, there's a better distinction to make here. Normally, I can just say, well, I'm a purist. I don't care about pleb fans. I just want to see the most high-level tactical player. But the problem is, since Overwatch League, as a venture, is explicitly a business and sports venture, it isn't just a cool esports league for fun. And, who cares if it makes any money or succeeds? No, the whole game is tied up with the success of this league. You do have to think about what matters to the fans and what they want to see. And so similarly, just as in League of Legends, I obviously would much rather not have best of 1 games in the regular season. I'd rather have best of 3 series, but I do appreciate that the viewer base didn't want that. Like, they weren't as interested in seeing the bad teams play a full best of 3. And so when they went back to best of 1s in LCS, I did see an interest like spike again. Yep. People were more engaged with the league. So I think along those lines, even though I'm kind of in Monty's camp, even if it's not always the great aesthetically to watch, I like kind of the cerebral challenge of figuring out what's happening in GOATs. It probably would be cooler, even for someone casually watching, if I could just watch Widowmaker every game or something like that. Just enjoying whatever role I like, that would help the pleb fans a lot, I do think.
Yeah, and there is something to be said about like that a lot. I think what's shitty for many players is that and I talked about this in my arguments for 222 roll lock, is that as a player who has spent, a decade practicing my aim, and then I was signed onto an Overwatch League team to aim well, it sucks to be benched or like to have to play Brigitte when I'm a Widow specialist. And I feel like my entire life of practice in video games has led to a point where I have, one of my strengths is having insane accuracy, and now I'm playing Brigitte. It's not awesome. Like, and it also, I think, the existence of GOATs fundamentally changes the skill set you have to have as a pro player in Overwatch from last year to this year. Yeah. And I think there's an excitement to be had from clicking heads that is lacking right now. And the game has basically changed. It is transformed into much more of a MOBA than it used to be. And when you have FPS players historically who are now playing a MOBA, doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad for there's so many talented players that aren't playing right now. Saviovi didn't play till this stage. Like Striker,
Flower, I wasn't fucking Pine again.
Flower,
Architect. There's so many good players.
Yeah. And also another good argument to bring in a different style. To be fair, if it allows the stars of the league to play.
And also, it allows the start. It sucks we haven't seen Pine. The fans love Pine. I love Pine. Everybody loves Pine. It's fun. It's fun to watch him play. And I think that it also is just better for longevity. So I'll ask you this question, Space. So you're a flex tank player. By
the way, Dante has to go any minute. So should we just?
I'm gonna go in 5 minutes.
Oh, there you go.
5 minutes. Right. Okay, so I'll ask you both this. I think it's better for player career longevity to know what you have to play. So, for example, if we do go to 222 lock, that means that we're going to, presumably Blizzard's going to put the champions into 3 different buckets of, are they a tank, are they a support, are they a damage dealer, right?
Mm-hmm. That'll already be fun.
Yeah, that'll be weird.
See what they think they are, at least.
So, but in a way, wouldn't it be helpful if you guys knew your role. So when a new hero is released, you know that you have to practice that, right? Because that is your job. Because right now it feels like a hero's released and teams are like, shit, who needs to be good at this hero? Like Space. I don't, and especially as metas change too, like the Sombra player has changed several times. Like who's going to play Sombra? So like it's weird for both of you guys because Dante, it's now at a flex tank role. So congrats, you get to play Diva too. And Space, congrats, you get to play Sombra now. How has that been for you guys? Like moving into this new, like, because you each have that specialty, but now you're learning each other's like specialty roles. Yeah. But you didn't sign up for this shit. Like, let's be real.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was the thing. That was the thing for me in stage 1 when people were playing Sombra Goats, and kind of in stage 2 a little, was like when people started playing Sombra Goats, like I had no idea how to play Sombra, and I had no idea that it was going to be meta. And then Moon comes up to me one day like, I want you to start practicing Sombra, and I'm like, okay. Like I would just hard Diva one trick, always focusing on Diva, just making sure that like that was my perfect craft. Like I knew everything about Diva, and then randomly during stage 1, I have to practice Sombra for like a week straight, and then it's super hard to learn a new hero like that, especially when you're playing against players who have already been playing Sombra for so long and already know like everything about that hero. So I think in one way, like 2-2-2 would make it much more comfortable for a player to, if a new hero comes out, like you'd be like, okay, I have to learn this hero, and I have about a month to do it or a week to do it, and I can just focus on that, and I don't have to worry about playing Tracer on stage one day because that just randomly became meta, and I only have 2 days to practice Tracer. So that makes it much more comfortable for me, but I couldn't speak for every other role.
Yeah, learning Diva was like really challenging because I mean I played it like 2 years ago when I was on the same team as Space, like right before we picked him up. Like I was a Diva player, and then I went to DPS, and then Space was on Diva. But yeah, it was really hard to learn Diva because Goats is like so different from Dive. I think maybe in a Dive meta it would have been like easier to learn, but like Goats is just like every role in Goats is just so different. So I had to learn it, because like Sombra Goats is like good, but we didn't think it was like viable on every point. But now I think it might be viable on like almost every point. Like obviously, like there's some maps like Sanctum and stuff that you have to play Diva, but I think it was just, I don't know, like there's so much that you have to catch up on. Like even like how you calm is different because you're like looking to enable different plays and like how to like enable your team. It's just really hard to learn in like a short period of time, especially when there's like a better option. Like Coolmat or Spree could just play for me on like certain maps, but then like it's weird because you have to change your roster and then you can't play Sombra Goats for half the map. And
then the other team is gonna know what you guys are playing. Like if Dante's out, we know you're playing Goats. If Dante's in, we know you're gonna play Sombra Goats.
Yeah. And I think it's just really damaging because if you don't have the expectation of what heroes are going to be played, it cuts pro players' careers short. Because, for example, neither of you guys is the ideal dual player of Diva and Sombra. But the problem is like if that meta persists long enough, then a team might find some random guy who just happens to be super good at both of those heroes. But then when the meta shifts and he has to play other shit, it's like, oh, well, we cut this really great player before for this guy. And I think it just creates instability, which is, it's bad for you guys and it's bad for the league because the fundamental thing we need in Overwatch League is stars that we continue to see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, that's what draws people in. And Goats has honestly fucked that up like pretty bad.
There's also another aspect to that as well, Monty, which is that actually as an outsider, someone looking on, analyst, player, whatever, just a fan, you'd also have the expectation of who should perform in a certain role. It's not like you'd have a team, just willy-nilly try 3 or 4 different people on one particular hero. Anyway, that's the portion where Dante has to leave us now. That was apropos of nothing whatsoever. So thanks to him for coming on the show. Just broke my train of thought there. But yeah, thanks, Dante. Cheers, mate.
Thanks for having me. See you guys.
Thanks to you, Bill.
Right, we'll continue on now with just Space. Dante had to leave us. Not like fucking Poochie or whatever in that Simpsons episode. He had a real thing he had to go and do. He hasn't just been like removed.
It's called practice.
It wasn't like actually Blizzard themselves said that you're also allowed to only have one player from one of the 2 organizations on the show. Like, no, because obviously that's something we should address at Space. We didn't bring it up earlier because we were just too busy focused on, again, the first hour of the show is about making sure all of Monty's petty personal differences within the community have been fully addressed and all of his points have been made. So we covered that part of the contract. But what we didn't bring up, obviously, is you're now in the unusual position because there was this report that Immortals Gaming Club is going to be the purchaser of Optic. That technically, since Optic obviously operates the Houston Outlaws and Immortals at the top was LA Valiant, that the same owner technically owns both teams at the moment. And obviously the side story is they will sell presumably the Outlaws brand. It was what it was implied, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about like what's going to be sold and what Immortals Gaming wants to keep, but from what I know about like the deal with Outlaws is that we basically pay them, and Blizzard runs them right now, and until then, like we're just looking for a buyer until they get a new home, basically. But other than that, that's all I really know about that situation. Is that we just pay all the Outlaws players. Like they still have the same structure within their team, and they're still like run by some other people that worked in Outlaws and Optic Gaming. And then from there on out, we're just waiting till there's a buyer that will take them.
Okay.
So obviously, like I'm not a big fan of this situation because there's a lot of room for foul play in there, and I think it's just a bad look, regardless. But I will say that I have talked to people internally at Blizzard, and it does seem like the concerns would be as follows: like, to put on my tinfoil hat, here are the potential issues that I see. First off, Valiant could literally just raid the Outlaws roster and make a bunch of player trades that were extremely favorable for the Valiant,
sure.
And sort of just strip the Outlaws team, which would be unfortunate. I have been told like that is obviously they're not going to let that happen because the league does at the end of the day have to approve of trades.
They want someone to to buy the team as well. You're not going to buy a team with nothing on it. Yeah, there's got to be some value to it. Yes, of course.
So there are other factors as well which give me a little more confidence. Obviously, you'd be worried if you guys played each other, but you are in separate divisions, Atlantic and Pacific, and you already played back in Stage 1 in March. Yeah,
so we don't play them at all again.
Yeah, and obviously, not to be rude, but both of you guys are like 5-12 right now, so the odds of you both getting into the playoffs are low, and also the odds of you at that point even hitting each other in the playoffs is also low. Because what you'd be worried about is like if you guys played each other, like would they throw a game in favor of the Valiant because that's the team that they own, or even in the Outlaws if they wanted to increase the value of the team, right, to sell. So I don't think any of that's going to happen. So, but we're lucky that it's not going to happen, but it's still like a really, I just don't like the situation at all. And I don't think it speaks well to, the competitive integrity, but fortunately, we're in a place where I don't think it's going to matter that much.
It's an example, unfortunately, of where the business part of esports is too far ahead, actually, in some respects, and too big to ignore. Because in this scenario, you can't just tell, like, just wait until the whole of one of these leagues remember that these are organizations which span multiple different games. Some of them are drastically different. You can't really tell them, you can't buy that team, and that you really only are buying one section of it in terms of our league until our league finishes. Like, what mandate would you have to do that? All you could really do in that scenario is ban the team that competes in your league from the league, which is obviously its own nightmare scenario you don't want to do. So really, you're caught between a rock and a hard place if you Blizzard in the Overwatch league. I can see why that would happen, because obviously in like the NFL or something, first of all, this would have to happen in the off season because it is just one team, one league, and then secondly, you would ensure that like it was all 100% squared away before the first match was ever played. So this would never be an actual concern. It's just an example of, that's why I say the business is in one hand too advanced, because we're talking about millions and millions of dollars here. But then the area that the industry hasn't caught up to the business is we still have multi-game teams, which obviously in a future of franchise leagues, I mean, Overwatch has tried to do this by making you rebrand. The idea is in the future, that probably isn't the ideal method for any sport to like, because, in theory, the same person owns like a baseball team and an NFL team, but there's not really any overlap there. Like it's not a problem in that sense. So I think it's just unfortunate. I agree with you, Monty. There's obviously a lot of room in which people could pull shenanigans. Luckily, in this case, it's not really incentivized. I think the only one I'd look out for would be if both teams were in like a playoff race scenario, then obviously you don't want one to purposely lose a specific game that somehow gets the other one into a playoff scenario. That's not the only one I can think of that would be like a human temptation that could arise. Aside from that, as you say, most of them luckily are just not covered in this scenario. It's not like it's the top two teams. It's not like they can both just like set up a semi-final that they want or something. There's actually a lot of the maneuvers that you otherwise could do in that circumstance aren't really on the table, luckily.
Yeah. The biggest one, I think, is potentially losing matches in order to get another one of the teams into playoffs. But I mean, I trust the people at Blizzard who are managing the situation. And I do think that Blizzard will, be good about this stuff. And I think it's also weird, though, and like not to go too far away from Overwatch League, but you have to look at even why this occurred, which is that Immortals is trying to get it back into the LCS. So like weirdly, Overwatch League and LCS are very closely tied together because we have so much shared ownership, and that ownership is now increasing. So I honestly believe that that if I was Blizzard and Riot, what I would have done is talk to each other, and I would have just said this needs to happen during the off season for both teams, saying like perhaps like Immortals puts down like an amount of money to pay for the rest of Optic to run through the rest of the season in LCS. Like they say, okay, we're going to assume financial responsibility for your player contracts, your housing, everything, whatever Optic's paying for. But we are not going to enact the change until the end of the season, because I think even in League of Legends, changing ownership of Optic, they could change the GM, they could change the structure of the team dramatically during the middle of their split, right?
Yeah.
So I think it would just have been better for everybody, both Riot and Blizzard, just to go ahead and like wait a little bit longer until both seasons have ended in order to do this. So I hope that we see some more cooperation between the leagues, because this is probably not going to be the first time that there is a crossover between LCS and OWL where it's affecting both leagues.
Sure. Right, what about this then? Let's actually move back into Overwatch space. Let's talk a bit about your team, the Valiant. Okay, so one player I'm always interested in your team, partly because he's a very good player, but also because he does seem to be involved in some very weird scenarios with the old coaching staff, is obviously Kareev. Because this is a guy who's played many different roles within the team. He certainly seemed to be sort of like the favoured son of the old coach. He certainly seemed to have that guy's ear, or whatever euphemism you want to use to say that he seemed to get his own way. It seemed to go the way things Kareev liked it. So who is this player to you? What is he like? And how does he operate in the current Valiant team?
I mean, Kareev has just been all around a really good teammate ever since I came to Valiant. Like, he was someone that when he first came, he didn't know lick English, so it was really hard to communicate with him. And like throughout like a year being in the States now, he's kind of gotten much better. And we almost consider Crib as like a Western player. And he's a player that was very open to bridging the gap between Western culture and Korean culture. Whereas in the past on Valiant and on a lot of other teams, like this is probably the hardest thing that happens when you try and mix two cultures together, or as many cultures as possible, is that the players and the coaches will just like be hanging out with all Korean players, and then the Western players will just be hanging out with all Western players. They get their own
little groups.
Yeah. There's like all the groups, and then people will start saying like, oh, like
and then gang warfare breaks out.
Yeah.
Like, of course,
these players don't like me, or like this player doesn't think I'm good, etc., etc. But like Crib was always a player that was open to both sides and wouldn't really care about who he's hanging out with or who he's playing with. So that's always been something really good for him.
He was playing both sides against the middle, so no matter which faction won.
Exactly. He was Littlefinger.
That guy's thinking. He's thinking ahead. So Crib's always been good at that, and he's always been a really selfless player. Like you said, like he's down to play. He's willing to play on DPS or play on flex support, whatever it is. I honestly don't think in season 2. Kriv wanted to play DPS. He said like he would rather play flex support, and that was something that came from season 1, because in season 1 Kriv actually wanted to play DPS, and he felt like his DPS was better than his flex support. But coming into season 2, it was like I don't want to play DPS at all anymore. I just want to stick to flex support. But then he ended up on DPS again, so it wasn't really in his control. It was just like a management decision, and he kind of had to eat through that. But he's still been a really strong player, and he's been playing really well on Flex, so we just decided to stick with him.
Okay. Another guy I want to ask about, because it's another name that people might remember from the old days, is obviously Fact Fiction, who now has appeared in the Valiant and is even playing games, where this is a guy where people might remember he was added to the Outlaws team in season 1, and then eventually he was off in like Mayhem Academy, he wasn't even in the OWL League, and all of a sudden he's back, not only in OWL, but he's even been a starter. So this is a guy obviously who was around the Western scene for quite a while. How has he been brought into the team? What was the concept of bringing this guy in?
I think Fact is like a player that really deserved a second chance in the Overwatch League because before Overwatch League, he was always really good on phase, and I don't remember if he was played on a team before that, but Fact was always like a consistent player within contenders, and when there was like no real structure in Overwatch, Fact was always a good player. Um, Fact had like a lot of mentality issues and like communication issues before Valiant, like on phase. I don't really know what happened. I can't really speak deep into phase, but there was a lot of like points where Fact just didn't know how to communicate what he wanted to say to his teammates or like what strats he wanted to run properly. And it's still something that we're working on today with him in Valiant. It's like how he communicates what strats he wants to run with us as players, because it's completely different from all the other teams he's played on before. You know, like we're trying to build a structure with packing to where any player can call anything, and you know, instead of like trying to put the blame on one person or be like, this is the reason why we lost, this is the reason why this strat didn't work. We work around like, okay, what happened here? Why didn't it work? What the enemy team do? What did we do wrong? And that's kind of how we built around it, instead of just like tilting and wasting a complete day of practice. So that's something that Fact has been working on a lot, is like, instead of looking at this mentality where it's like, oh, this is why we lost, and you guys suck and nobody listens to the plan. It's more like, okay, we made a mistake here because we didn't talk about this right here. And that's like something that Fact has been working on a lot, and we've been helping him improve on. And he's like a really good mechanical player. It was just that the way he came into Overwatch and what all the hardships that he went through on like past teams or whatever happened, like it kind of changed his mentality, and we're trying to rebuild that.
What has been the difference between him and playing with Fate now that you guys have traded Fate away?
I think that was probably the biggest difference, is that like Fate was also a very vocal player and a really big shot caller, but it was hard to communicate to Fate of like what was going wrong within the plans and what was going wrong within like communication in the team, because Fate was it was hard to I can't really, it's really hard to put this, because like Fate needs to kind of understand the game from everybody's perspective, and it was hard to kind of bridge that gap in like translation. So for him as a shot caller, he can make a call, but not everyone really understands it fully, and then he kind of just it's really hard to explain, honestly, the problems that we had within communication playing with Fate. But it made it much more easier playing with Fact, because we're all English speaking players, and Fact was like, it's really easy for him to understand what where the gap holes are within the strats that he makes and where we can fix them. Whereas it was much harder to communicate all the gap holes to Fate, and if like something went wrong, we would just scratch it completely, you know, instead of trying to kind of reiterate it and keep building off of it. That was like the biggest problem that we had.
It seems like Fate is going to perform better in an all Korean lineup, I think in general. I mean, we saw what happens when that was the case during the Overwatch World Cup, which obviously he was like main tanking for sure. The Korean team that won. So yeah,
for sure.
Right, well, let's talk about some of the other teams in the league then, right? So, first obvious question we could discuss: does the Shock losing mean they aren't the top team anymore? What about for your money, Space? Who would you say is the best team right now in Overwatch?
Well, I mean, in terms of record, is obviously Vancouver. And sure. I think those two are the top two teams, Vancouver and Shock.
Put it this way, if aliens like all of a sudden appeared in the sky with a massive laser and they said, this destroys the Earth if you lose this next Overwatch League, you pick which team plays. You either pick the Vancouver Titans, New York Excel, or the San Francisco Shock. Right? Which one are you picking? And I'm assuming you're not a misanthrope who wants the Earth to be destroyed, obviously, within that premise, right?
I think I'd probably pick Vancouver, honestly, because I think just like the Shock, where they lost and they learned, if I were to put my money on a team, it would be Vancouver, because, I mean, Vancouver's 18-0 right now, and they lost to Shock, and I'm 100% confident that they learned from that loss, and that the next time they play Shock, they're going to be really well prepared for them. So if I were to say, like, what team would I consistently put my money on, it would definitely be Vancouver, because I think Shock is really good, and they definitely learn from mistakes, but if you look at it in terms of Vancouver consistently dominating, and then if they had a rematch right now, Vancouver would probably be prepared for their playstyle. and know what to do because they just lost the Shock. So I think I would put mine on Vancouver for now.
I would also agree, especially because the Shock, they looked like they were really rusty coming back from the break. They were making a lot of mistakes that I don't think they would have made at the end of stage 2. So maybe they didn't practice as much as other teams during the break, especially after winning, basically because I think like if I was the coaches and we just played an entire stage without losing a map and then we won the stage 2 playoffs, like I think I'd give my players perhaps more of a break than normal after that, which might be affecting their performance now. But I will say that both the Shock and the Titans have looked more vulnerable than they ever have at any point prior to the Shock in stage 1. And I would argue the Titans have ever, because the meta shifting, Sombra is not a great Sombra, like straight up. Like, so if they have to play Sombra goats, I think that might be somewhat of an issue for them. And especially because then it's Janu who's on the Zarya. So you're basically giving up. The problem I think that the Titans have is you're giving up one of the top Zaryas in the league to put him as a pretty bad Sombra and put Janu on the Zarya. And it's not ideal. And what that says to us is that Janu must therefore be even worse at Sombra than Sombra is, which is not a good look, I think, for the Titans. And if the other problem is that if you put Stitch in, or you put another player from the roster, maybe Hureg is some sort of god tier Sombra that I'm not aware of. But if you sub Janu out, then you lack that flexibility. So I do think that the Titans have looked, if we are going to continue down this route where teams figure out that Sombra Goats is like, really, really good on certain points or certain maps, that they could lose. And they've been playing very close games recently. Like the Spark had a really good shot.
Yeah, that was really close.
Yeah, really close. So I don't know, like if they can keep playing regular goats, I think the Titans are good to go. But if the meta is going to shift on them, they are looking like they are weaker in the Sombra Goats meta. So
for sure.
Okay. Where does NYXL come in with all this? Where do they fit in the mix space?
NYXL, I don't know. I mean, they're on the come up right now for sure. I think they haven't had the hardest games so far. In terms of their schedule, hasn't been too hard, but I think they're still figuring out, like with the Sabiobi Sombra Goats, I think they're trying to permanently run that, right? Because they don't have an off-lane player in. It's Sabiobi.
By the way, that's super weird. It's super weird to me because if we go back and we remember, Meko was a very good Sombra player earlier this year, so I have no idea why Sabiobi is being put in. It's very odd.
And I
think Sabiobi just wants to play Monty. And they had to find some reason to reverse engineer a way he could play in the game.
And I think the only reason why that Outlaws New York game was so close is because Sabiobi Sombra wasn't up to par with Overwatch League standards of like how to play against Zenyatta and use your translocator properly. But obviously Sabiobi's a good player, so he started to learn from that. But if they had played Meko, it probably would have been a 4-0 or like a 3-1. But it wouldn't have been that close, so it doesn't make sense to me.
But the next time their next match was London, and Sabiobi played much better in Smash London.
Yeah, for sure.
That. Yeah. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so I don't really know what it's going to be like if New York versus a really good Sombra team or a really good Goats team that's going to force them to play like Diva, and then they're just stuck on playing permanently Sombra Goats. So once people figure out how Sabiobi plays and like how New York as a team plays, like what their play style is and how you can counter it, then they're going to be stuck. But for now, they're doing pretty well with the double DPS lineup.
Because the interesting thing is, NYXL, even for the rest of the split, don't play Vancouver or Shock. So as a result, if they actually do end up being some super tick team in the playoffs, which is a fucking tune I've heard before about the NYXL team, every stage. But if they actually end up being super amazing, we'll get the big reveal in the playoffs. Because obviously we're not going to see them play any of those teams until final, semi-final, some point like that.
I mean, it's crazy to think about too, but you have to keep in mind that New York has only lost to Atlanta, and they lost twice in the regular season. They've beaten everybody else in the regular season. So we don't actually.
It is ridiculous how that thing just keeps repeating over and over again, isn't it?
Like, we don't touch on this because they haven't, made a stage final this year, or they haven't done well in the stage playoffs, obviously. So it always seems like you're tempted to rate XL lower than, like, once you remember, you're like, oh shit, they only lost those 2 matches to Reign. It's like, oh yeah, they are really good. Like, but you don't really think about them in the same way that you think about the Shock, even though they've lost more matches.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. It's
they definitely have that. The problem is, though, that is the problem. They ride that knife edge, don't they? Where the second you see them win a bunch of good games, you're like, oh, this is it. They're back. They're going to win this stage. It's amazing. And then when they don't, you always say that same thing. You go, I'll never do it again. I'll never get it, But then the problem is, like you're saying, eventually you go the other way and you go, they're not even that relevant anymore. Oh, fucking hell, what? They've only lost to one team. Maybe they are good. And then the whole cycle begins again, afresh.
Why is it that I love all the Razor Cake teams in esports, Thorin? Like, KT.
It's because, I'll tell you why. It is because there's nothing more alluring in life in general, I think, than potential. Like what someone's like, especially the key thing is it has to be real potential. It can't be like, you just have an average player. You're like, I'm sure he could become good. No, it's potential that you see flashes of. And when you see the flash, you think if they could get anywhere close to that consistently, they'd be like the best team ever. So in most of these games, the teams we're talking about, it's always someone right on the cusp of being the absolute best. And the problem is sometimes even the team who is the best ahead of them might not even have the same potential and peak. They just hit it way more often. So they're just like more consistent, or they just don't have as many like key flaws. And there's probably the other part, isn't it? Is that there is also something kind of almost like out of a movie script where the person who is the most skilled or who has the most like crazy peak has to have with that some sort of mad character flaw that means they can't activate that all the time. It's like some sort of an anime logic, isn't it? Like you can't just win every battle. You have to have some fatal flaw that always crushes you before the season finale, don't you?
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, when I say Razor Cake, so some are familiar with the KT Rolster Razor Cake phenomenon in League of Legends. So the concept of the Razor Cake is that, okay, so you have this beautiful cake and it just looks amazing, well frosted, delicious, right? And so you try a piece of this cake and you're like, this is the best cake ever. And you take another bite and there's a razor in there and it cuts your mouth up, right? And so the joke is that you continue to eat the Razor Cake, even though every time, so the next year comes along and I'm like, wow, that cake was good. Last time there was a razor in it, but I just can't stop myself. I'm going to eat this cake again. There's a razor in it again, right?
Oh, and there's one extra detail to add as well, Monty.
You just keep eating the Razor Cake over and over, even though every time there's going to be a razor in there, you just fucking eat it anyway.
But there's one more detail to add though, Monty. One last nuance to add to the analogy is this. Part of why, if you've eaten the Razor Cake 4 or 5 times already, you must eat it the next time is because here's the thing. Imagine the one time it doesn't have the razor in. If you've eaten all the ones with the razors in and you don't eat that one will be the worst feeling of all, Monty. That is worse than having a razor in your mouth. That is the key detail you forgot to add. That is the true meaning of why everyone gets sucked back in. I know this, by the way, because believe it or not, the exact same thing happened to me in Counter-Strike. Famously, the Astralis core has played together, by the way, for 6 years. They used to be that team, and every year they'd be like the third team or the second team, and they would never win the major, right? And so you know how many times I looked foolish, Monty, picking them when they made like the semi-finals. Like, it's their time. So obviously, by the way, and I can tell you, I'm glad I did keep eating that Razor Cake, because I tell you what, if they'd have had the best year ever that they did last year, and I hadn't have eaten the Razor Cake that time, and I'd have been like, I'm out on them now. That would be the worst. Like I know in isolation it wouldn't. I should still only pick the correct one, but that would have been worse torture than all the Razor Cake times, Monty.
So yes, that is the origin of the Razor Cake analogy, and and
it's never fit a team or core better than NYXL/LW Blue throughout all their history, has it? Come on, this team's ridiculous.
Yeah, and like I've been a fan of theirs. Like they've been my favorite team ever since like Apex and LW Blue, because I just really enjoy their play style and I really enjoy watching them play. But yes, they are. I am caught again in a Razor Cake. Someday I hope that delicious cake doesn't have any razors in it. And to move this on, like it might not, this time, which again is the famous thing about the Razor Cake. You think there's not going to be a razor in it this time. But I really think that this stage's playoffs are up for grabs, and there are teams like the Spark or NYXL that have a very legitimate shot at actually winning this stage.
Especially in the context of what you just said earlier, that obviously the teams that were the established dominant teams don't look as super sick. Like, they don't look unbeatable now.
Yeah.
People at least are making them look mortal, and that would be the ideal time to run into a team like NYXL.
Yeah, for sure.
So who are your favorites right now? Like, what are the teams that you think are on top and could potentially win this stage space? Outlaws might go 6-1, so we have to talk about them too.
Yeah, I would say it's obviously SF in Vancouver, like you said. I think SF, since they lost Outlaws, they're back on their high horse. And I know those players personally, like Sinatra and Super. They don't like to lose at all, especially against other North American players. So they are not going to be playing around anymore, and they're going to be trying their hardest to win every game 4-0.
To be fair, they did mega smash Seoul yesterday, so they might be back in form.
Yeah. But other than that, I would say Shanghai is going to be probably a playoffs contender. I don't know what their schedule is, but they're a really good Sombra team. They're probably like one of the best in terms of what team people look at. Yeah.
Okay, so they just to talk about it, they are 2-0 currently, and Shanghai they play you next. And then they're going to play the Guangzhou Charge, so they'll probably win that one. And then they're actually playing the Guangzhou Charge back to back, and then Philadelphia. So
so they
could go undefeated eventually.
Yeah,
and that's two playoff berths in a row. Not bad.
Their Sombra Goats is like the team that people will look at for Sombra Goats if you want to learn how to play against it or how to play it. It's definitely, you look at Ding and Shanghai Dragons. So I would look at them, and then Outlaws. I think Outlaws has a lot of potential if they keep working hard and they don't let any losses come close to them, or like let any team morale like kind of push them down, because those guys have always been a team that's either they're either playing really well or they're doing really bad. So I think it's up to them basically as a team to be like, look, we have this stage 3 shot to really push through and be one of the best teams, and not give up on that. Keep playing what you're good at, and then keep focusing on how to make it better and better every day.
Here's the sad thing, Monty. I've just realised now, like, first of all, I will say, just I don't know whether this is similar in American culture or not, but there's a bizarre aspect of British culture, right, where when you have a group of male friends, for some reason, something that would really annoy you if it happened to you in life or is really unfair is just hilarious if it happens to a friend of yours, and you're just laughing like, they're wrecking you, look at that, that's fucking so unfair. And like, I don't know why it's funny. I think it's just because you have to have that sort of like gallows humour to take, like, make light of the fact that all of our lives are fucked, etc. So you do that, right? So in line with that, I've just realised my secret sort of like fucked up dream is that the Outlaws do actually win this stage. And when they win this stage, they even win the stage by playing Sombra Goats on Eichenwald on that particular point we were talking about. And then the best part is, Monty, right? When they win, because I can tell you another occupational hazard of being an analyst is fans always take like a very high resolution comment, like dissolve it down to the most low resolution version, and then just remember that. And so they will always think that your version is like a much, much more silly version than what you said. So what's great is I can tell you what would happen, Monty. Every Outlaws fan would message you like, "What up now, bitch? Oh, what? Yeah, you're talking shit now." It's like, well, no, I actually said to do this. I'm like, no, you didn't. You said we were garbage. You said we were going to win. They'd be like, no, I literally told them to play DPS. Like, no, you didn't. You didn't say that at all. You never said that, man. And so you'd have the ultimate scenario that's the worst, which is when you were proven right by reality, but they interpret that as you have been proven wrong. And there's nothing would get to you more. It'd get you so hard.
I mean, the victory lap I would take at that point would be epic in scope. Like, I don't know if there's ever been a more epic victory lap than the victory lap I would take. You also reminded me of something, by the way, which is, so they were talking about that, the Eichenwald, right? And playing Sombra Goats on point B. So the hilarious thing is that they actually provided me with the best possible argument against them, which is that when I said, even though it's not ideal, play Sombra on Eichenwald B attack, because they had played it very well on defense on that same map against the Titans and it held them at point B. So the hilarious shit is, in their win versus San Francisco, they lost Eichenwald. And you know what they did? They played Rhine Goats the entire map, and they got dumpster, like got full held.
That's a shame.
The San Francisco Shock. The San Francisco Shock almost made a top 5 time in Overwatch League history because they pushed them in so fast. And I'm pretty sure, I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. I said it in the cast after the match or after that map, but I think they got like 5 eliminations on both attack and defense combined. So if you're going to fucking tell me that you wouldn't have done better with Sombra goats, like, I don't even know what to tell you. Like, you got, and the whole point was that the whole premise, right? Remember, was like I said, even if you play non-standard, playing the mirror against the best goats team is going to do you in. So I actually now have evidence of that map against the top 2 goats teams in the league, again with them running Sombra goats and them running Rhine goats. Like, you gave me the perfect evidence. Like, what is that? So,
I mean, I
it's
heard
actually crazy
that when Outlaws played goats in that match, they just got completely dumpstered the whole time, and that the only way that they were going to win is just playing Sombra goats the whole time. So,
you know what happened is I in that map, Sinatra was averaging. He had an average of 17,000 plus damage done per 10 minutes on Zarya, and he actually in that map tied the highest average percent charge at 82% average energy on that map. So consider that. You got fucking dumpstered doing the thing that I told you not to do. Like, so anyway, I forgot about that, but that's like a really like spicy detail right there, right? That they actually like they contradicted themselves in their own like criticism of what I said. Fucking hilarious, dude. You can't write this shit, man. Like, sometimes truth is stranger than fiction.
Sure. Right. What about so to pick a couple more teams as we round out this episode? What about Space? What do you think of the status of Seoul at the moment? Because obviously they haven't had the craziest run of schedule either. Like, we're still waiting for them to get really tested, but obviously a team that has come on a long, long way since the Seoul of old. So what do you think of the current Seoul dynasty?
I mean, it's like the casters said last time they played their match, is like Seoul is constantly swapping their rosters in and out and constantly playing different players like every map or like every series. They're swapping rosters around, and even in scrims, like Seoul will be swapping a lot of, you know, what players playing what role, or not swapping roles obviously, but like what players playing on what map and et cetera, and like what series against what team. So I think once Seoul kind of finds their footing on who they're comfortable with, then they'll be dominant again, because they're honestly a really good team. Like, they have really strong players in each role, but they just keep swapping them in and out. So I don't really know what's going on with that.
I think they said in an interview that they believed that all of their players were equally good, which, like, I don't even know how to respond.
What an insane comment that is. Like, I hope that's like a smoke screen to distract people from talking about the rest of their team. Which, if it is, it's genius. If it's a real comment, holy moly, right? Okay.
So, no, they did say that, I believe, in the post-match interview when questioned about this. Like, I don't know.
I want that coach on a lie detector, though. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know if they believe that or if that's just their PR answer, right? If they really believe that, I would be quite concerned. And I was talking with Wolf and Doe about this last night, actually, while we were out at dinner. And we were talking about their strategy. And I said, I don't understand what they're doing, because we have 100+ years of professional sports history to look at in the modern era. And no team in any sport that I've ever known of has had this strategy. And certainly no esports team has tried to do it. London tried to do it and failed last year.
Yeah.
So I don't really understand, like, from my perspective, unless you are breaking the team into 2 discrete groups of 6 players that can build synergy, I don't know how.
You basically have to go the hockey route, like you're saying. It has to be a line of players that come in, and the idea is because they play together, they do have the pre-existing synergy. But yes, the concept that you could literally have like a distinct, let's say 5 players, and 2 of them play, but it could be any of the 5. That is madness if you want to have any kind of consistent team play, especially in a GOATS meta. That is quite a wild concept.
Yeah.
I mean, and people will say, oh, well, Seoul Dynasty has been performing very well. Sure. And of course, that's true. But they've also been performing very well against the Florida Mayhem,
some of the bottom
and the Guangzhou
teams.
Charge, and the Atlanta Reign. So the Atlanta Reign is really their only impressive win. And then, of course, they just got bodied by San Francisco. They have to play Hangzhou next week. And so I do think, not to say that it can't work at some level, like, I think you can be a pretty good team running this this strategy, but are you ever going to be like the best team, top 3 team? I just don't think so.
Yeah, you're not going to take a championship by doing that.
Yeah, that would be my argument.
There's too much mid-game synergy and like play styles that are just going to rival against each other. And even like communicating the little things is just going to, when it comes to like pressure and the different team that you're playing against, like you said, like when you're playing against Vancouver, a team that's not going to let you get away with any mistakes or give you a second to breathe while you're playing the game, like it's going to be impossible if you're swapping players in and out on each map. Like it's just not going to work ever.
Also, Monty, don't tell me that fucking Anna's coming back into the meta as some sort of ridiculous, like again, just when I think I'm fully out, like I'm never again going to believe in Ryu Jae-hong. Like the siren call comes from the past. But what if, Monty? He's
actually been playing really well recently.
Of course, but what if? What if all along he still was the best, but we just didn't have the right hero? I want to believe. I want the Ryu Jae-hong picture. I want to believe. I don't, but I want to believe.
I mean, he's been doing really well, and like it's hard to fault Seoul too much because they have been improving. But I just don't understand at a fundamental level, understanding how esports and sports work. Like you are a big proponent of this yourself. Like build around your star players, and when you have Fissure and Fleta, I would just rather see that consistency and like have you work on them and like build around them than necessarily just like
I would even say it's just to complete like the abstract element of it, not like specifically just on Seoul's team. I would even say that it's an example of like short-term thinking that I actually think fucks you in the long term. So here's the thing. I will bet that in the short term, the different comps they ran in terms of players probably worked way better in scrims. And so they were like, right, well, for now, why don't we just maximize our chance of winning this game? The problem is whatever didn't work with whatever is your real best starting lineup and your real best comp is probably being like essentially shown to you by the game, by the fact that a different comp runs that part better. So really you should take the lesson that you're not able to learn at the moment and try and iterate that with the real starting lineup so that in the future they aren't as bad as that. That's the obvious position you can go to, especially because other teams probably just also can't take this approach. So you're not really like, it's like you haven't really pioneered something new. You're just sort of using the luxury of having a bunch of different good players in the very short term to win maybe like a couple of extra matches. But then that also adds into the other element, Monty, which is this isn't a distinct circuit of tournaments. Like if that would allow us to win a LAN now, and that's a big deal, do it. But if this is the big league and you're trying to win the whole league at the end, then you want to be the best at the end, don't you? So it also doesn't really play with how Overwatch League is structured,
Right. And
if they pulled it off, they'd be the most genius team ever. But again, I don't think you're going to crack the whole paradigm of professional sports, as you said.
Yeah, that would be like, if they could do this, that would be the first time I think it has happened ever in any even real sport. So that's why I just don't buy into it. Like there's no precedent, and why should I believe? There's literally no reason to believe that the Seoul Dynasty are going to be the ones to break this precedent.
Yeah.
They are a team I'm a little bit concerned about, though, because like I agree they've been a lot better. Some of the players are coming online, but it's the problem with Seoul Dynasty the whole time, pretty much. They've never really made up that ground and been a true contender. They've never managed to bridge that gap. Every time they come close is when they just slide back to the middle of the pack. And so I have to say, if I look at this current team, again, they have a lot of positives. I mean, I think some of the players they added for Season 2 were much better, but I don't really have confidence that they can boost up into that top group.
Yeah.
What do you think they lack space? What would they need?
For me, honestly, I think it's like a really aggressive DPS player. I think they have like Ryu Jae-hong is a really good leader, and then they have every other role is pretty strong in terms of listening to Ryu Jae-hong, and it's just like I don't know. I mean, I feel like when I look at a team like SF, they have in this meta they have Sinatra, who's like super aggressive and kind of controls the tempo of the game, and like he wants to be the superstar. He wants to be the one that everyone looks at as like the best player in the world. So when you have that like fierce mentality and that grinding mentality, it kind of changes the whole team's mentality and it builds around that. But for like Seoul Dynasty, you have Ryu Jae-hong, who's like doesn't really have that fire that he can bring to the team, like a young talent that can really change the whole team's mentality. Whereas like they have Fitz, but Fitz is kind of like a middle of the pack player who's just like not really gonna hard carry the game. Like I feel like they need somebody that can really take control of the game, like Fissure or like Fleta. Like even though it's not really Fleta's meta because he's on Brig, but like Fissure is a player that can really take control of the game and kind of control the tempo. So I feel like Seoul needs one of those players to come in and kind of be a leader for their team and change the whole entire game for them, basically. But because right now it's like they all look up to Ryu Jae-hong, but Ryu Jae-hong can't really solo carry a game or change the whole impact in the game for them. And I feel like that's kind of how it's always been with Seoul, because I've heard that there was issues with like the coaching staff beforehand in season 1, and coming into season 2 that there was like issues with the coaching staff. So it's always been looked on to Ryu Jahong to kind of carry that team and like be the big leader for them. But I feel like they kind of need somebody that will take the pressure off of him and, you know, build more of like a aggressive DPS player of the sort or something like that, or in any role, honestly, I think.
Yeah, it's just weird because they're the only 12-player team in the league right now, so they keep on adding players, but it just I don't know. It just never seems to work. Like London did a lot better once they won stage 1, so people are gonna be like, wow, they had the 2 teams, but it was also the beginning of the league. They peaked really hard in that playoff. And no one had figured out how to best utilize Overwatch rosters, I don't think, at that point in time, because nobody had tried having like 8 players on a team and swapping out, because that wasn't how Overwatch worked really before. I mean, it did a little bit in Apex, but like for the most part. And so I think that was like certainly a peak and certainly I think it was an outlier is what I'm saying. And then the way London won is that the more they did that, the longer the season dragged on, the worse they looked. And then by cutting back down to 7 players, that's when they started to get that synergy and peaked really in the playoffs again. So.
Yeah, that's one thing I'll definitely agree with. Space made the point of there, his premise that like DPS is one of the weakest roles they have in their team, especially because obviously Fleta does not play it. Basically, like he's put into a different role right now, so you kind of need 2 people who are good in that sense. Like the other people they have, it's actually that's one area where they fucked up in the off season. It's like they didn't even bring anyone in that was like some super prospect. Like these players they brought in were okay. They obviously had a reason to bring in Illicit and Fitz, etc. But I'm assuming it didn't work out as they hoped or whatever they thought what they saw in the trial, because this is a team where, I would have said one of the first things they should have done with a massive brand name and backing like they have is get a superstar player. Get one of those big names that was in the top contenders, career teams, etc. Like, there should have been someone they could have gotten, I feel like, because they're always going to lack for that player.
I mean, they have Munchkin, and he's like a really amazing
his Zarya is not great.
His Zarya is not good. If he was good at Zarya, though, it would a really good fit for them, because Munchkin's like known to be an aggressive player, and on like in DPS metas, he really takes control of the game.
Sure.
So I think they're trying to add him more into like Zarya, but obviously it's really late for that. So, and it's going to be hard for him to compete for like the best Zaryas. But I feel like that was the one thing Seoul is really missing, is like getting really aggressive players that are going to look to Yujong as a leader, but also take control of the game and build that tempo. Because that's what they had in Korea, right? It was like they had Who Are You, the young talent who just hard carried on Genji. Then they had Guido on Tracer, who just dominated everybody on Tracer, and like they always had those young talents that were really good, and then those players would look up to Ryu Jahong, and like he would be like, I'm not saying like Ryu Jahong does all the leading for the team, I'm sure he doesn't, but like he's like a captain for that team, like he's like one of the faces of Overwatch. So you could.
I mean, he is officially the captain. Like they had a ceremony where they like gave him the flag and like, you are the captain. Right?
So like Ryu Jahong's always been a big leader, and then I feel like they just need aggressive players again that will listen to that and carry the game.
Also, in line with what you said, Monty, like that does seem like the other. I mean, first of all, they would have to change players and remove some players anyway to make space because they have the full-size roster. But I also agree. I actually think if you look at Overwatch League, there's times when it makes sense to have the full 12-man roster, but there are also times where you're almost like your own worst enemy by keeping players on who you don't really ever plan to make like a permanent part of the team, but you're tempted to just put them in for a game or to use them at a certain time. And if anything, you'd actually probably be better off with like the hard necessity of having to really pick between 9 players who's going to actually play these games and who's an official sub, etc. Because it's not like they haven't got the London squad. Like the difference was that was a super talented squad where there's reasons why you'd want to try some of those players before you're 100% sure you want to sell them. I think some of these players won't be going to top teams after this.
Yeah. Right. It's not like a fissure gesture situation where you arguably have the best 2 tanks in the league on your team. Like that's not the case with like Fissure and Marvel. Like Marvel's fine, but Fissure has historically been a better player, and we hardly get to see him now.
Yeah.
That is wild in itself, isn't it? That's another reason why I have to say, like we said earlier, like just when I think as a pleb fan, the 2-2-2 lock would be so much better in that respect, because there are certain players who just have their own issues in terms of being a teammate or communication, etc., who definitely would be able to play. It's just at the moment that basically their biggest weakness is one of the most emphasized parts of the whole game. So it's logical why they're on the sidelines, but that does suck, you know.
Yeah.
Like imagine telling someone, this season of the NFL, there just won't be any wide receivers. Like, oh, brilliant. Well, I never enjoyed that part of the game. Like, what?
I hate watching Julio Jones play.
Exactly. No, that would be rough. That's a hard sell, put out with.
Yeah, and that's why it's so hard, because like it's questionable, if it comes in the timing, and like again, this is all hearsay at this point in time.
Sure.
If it comes in the timing, but at the same time, you're like, that is pretty good for the fans, and like I would really like to see some of that stuff. I really would like to see Pine back in the mix. Like I'd like to see some other players. So.
Yeah, and you want to see the players that are playing now back on their signature heroes.
Of course,
You want to see agilities on Genji and Pharah.
I really don't want to watch Saya play more Brigitte when I could watch play Widowmaker instead.
Widow,
yeah, there's the other thing. Even though, like, I picked the Titans as a very obvious example because they're a new team for this season and they've been so exceptional at GOATs. But put it this way, if I was even a team like Shock, I'd complain a little bit. But in the back of my head, I'd also go, this is going to be fucking brilliant for us as well. We have got one of the most mad stacked rosters in the league.
Yeah, you have Striker.
Yeah, I'd just begrudgingly complain. Whatever, yeah, but I guess I will do it then. And this is amazing, actually. Of course.
You have Striker for Tracer and Archetype for Genji waiting on the bench. So those guys are prepped. And New York is prepped as well.
Yeah.
Most people are London. I'm sure London are waiting for that move.
Yeah,
I bet the fucking desk rose about 2 inches when they heard that rumor.
You have the Vancouver Haxel Genji waiting to dominate everybody.
I forgot about that one. Yeah, exactly.
And the Stitch hit scan. I mean, I feel like every team is prepared for both metas.
Oh, that's also the worst thing about GOATs is like if you're someone who only watched Owl and you had your friend telling you the whole time, like hyping, just wait until like Stitch and Axel in the league and all that stuff. And you're like, what is it though? I didn't see anything. No, they're not even, they can't do any of that stuff, can they? I was hyping something different. I was watching a different game.
Yeah.
To Huxall's credit, he probably is the best Brigitte player in the league, but
he's amazing at Brig.
It ain't the same as a Genji though.
Yeah, it's not the same as watching his Genji from back in the day, that's for sure.